We are all about showcasing authors and supporting authors to become authorpreneurs. Natalie McQueen and Becky Norwood of Spotlight Publishing bring to you their Authors Spotlight and expert interviews. Success as an author hinges around well-thought-out marketing, which begins the moment you put your pen to paper or begin to tap the keyboard. Their expertise guides their authors to become #1 bestsellers, yet it doesn't stop there. The book establishes expertise, builds a business, and opens the doors to being seen, being read, and then being paid for their knowledge. Listen to this informative interview by Spotlight Publishing with Natalie and Becky.
All right. Welcome to our Spotlight interview. This is Becky Norwood and Natalie McQueen. We're with Spotlight on Your Business and Spotlight Publishing, and we have with us today Yael Cohen, who has published several books herself. She's quite abreast of all the things that are going on, and we do spotlight interviews for the main purpose and sole purpose of supporting authors as for exposure and to get the word out about their books and to share the journey, to share the remarkable journey that authors go on when they decide to publish a book. So welcome, Yael.
Thank you, Becky. And just a quick tech thing, they took me off the 5G, and I'm just going to click on that, but it might kind of just do something weird for a moment, but it'll do much better.
Okay. Now you are frozen.
But all by itself. Am I still here?
You're frozen.
You are, but you're frozen.
Hello?
Hello.
Uh-oh, you froze. Oh, no. Shouldn't have done that. We froze.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, there
now
you
it
are.
says, oh, there you are back. Okay, it says I'm unstable. I'm sorry. Actually, it said the internet was unstable.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's putting it out there.
I can't believe anything the internet tells me, you know. So.
The joys of technology. Huh?
Yes, I know.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about you and in particular, we want to know about your books and your journey to becoming an author. So show us your books.
Okay. Actually, I don't have the other one here too, because that's right. I have the Goat Journals also. But this is my book, Secrets of a Special Education Advocate. And these are basically my secrets from over the last 31 and a half years of being a special education advocate, of what I have learned. And what is a special ed advocate anyway? Well, if someone has a child with special needs, either learning challenges or ADHD or autism or developmental disabilities or a whole slew of other categories, what happens is in the beginning, you're usually, although you're trying to figure things out, it's usually you're okay with the people who are helping you. But once you get into school, when the kid is 5, you think, oh, well, this will just be so nice like it was in early intervention, and it'll be nice like it was in preschool. And all of a sudden, often it's not so nice.
World, huh?
Yeah. And you can't get everything that your kid wants or what your kid really needs. And you don't know what to do because all of a sudden you're kind of in a quandary. Mm-hmm. And if your child has been in special education before that, it is still different. And then you can usually move along. But if your child, you figure out in first grade that your child isn't reading like all the other kids are, or that your child has some other disability that you kind of figure out around the time maybe they're in 3rd grade or 4th grade, sometimes it's really hard to get into that system.
Mm-hmm. So this is your background and your experience, and you work with families with this every day with these issues.
Yes, I do.
So the purpose of your book is to give the guidance that is needed for those that are just facing this issue, and it's quite a lot of heavy responsibility to find out what to do to get the help that is needed.
Yes, it's very hard. The school basically has all the cards, and then it's a lot to do with money. Not that you have to bribe them, but special education is not funded very well, even though there's all these great laws that got passed because kids used to have to stay home if they had special needs. But now they get to come, but really the federal government only gives back about 18 cents on the dollar that a district spends. So I get the money part, but still children need help, and it's the responsibility of the school districts to do that. And it's not just for, you would think it would just be for new parents, but it's not. I get calls from parents who have been doing this for years, and even ones who are very effective advocates for their children, and then something goes wrong and they just can't get through to anybody.
Wow. I'm a member of Seroptimus, and we just had a speaker yesterday that it just blew my mind because of the issues that the schools in Arizona is having quite a bit of issue with this for funding because of all the private schools that are coming in and the people that are taking advantage of those money vouchers that they get when they decide to put their children in a private school, and what that does to the public school system, and how sometimes these vouchers are being spent incorrectly by the parents. They're just kind of given like a debit card, and the parents are spending it on things they should not spend.
Wow, I didn't even know they had vouchers in Arizona. I know Florida has some, and if you use one, actually, they make you give up all your special education rights for your children, which is also terrible because they don't have to meet them there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
sad that not all children have the same opportunities to get equal help because of funding.
That's right. That's right. And the school districts do spend, in all fairness, they do spend a fortune on special education. But that doesn't mean your kid is going to get what your child needs. And it doesn't mean always that the parent knows what to ask for and how to ask for it.
And
Right.
so is that your role, is to help them to know how to ask for what they need?
Yes, it's that I have a first degree in speech pathology, so speech and language, and I have a master's in special education. So when I read those reports, I understand what they mean. I understand what the educational jargon means, which people don't even realize that they use. I mean, that's in any field. But I basically try and get all the paperwork and information from the parents ahead of that. Sometimes I talk with people in school districts extensively to figure out what's going on. Sometimes go in and observe if the child is local. But then I sit down with the parents, whether that's in person or it's via the internet now, because I can really do this anywhere. And we basically do a strategy session. And I have to make sure the parent really understands what's going on and what all these numbers mean and so forth, and then what to ask for and how to ask for that. So sometimes parents they do a coaching session and they just can go in and do it themselves, and sometimes somebody needs to be there with them. But what's one of the most interesting things that I learned a long time ago is when you sit in one of these special education meetings as a parent, and there's often like a whole room full of people, and then there's you, which I always say, never go alone. Always take somebody with you, even if it's the neighbor down the street, somebody. But what happens is parents are overwhelmed and everybody is saying no, and everything you ask for, they say no. I mean, sometimes they say yes, but if you don't know how to push that, you have a problem. But what happens is parents really don't remember more than like the first 5 minutes of the meeting. And if they say something bad about your kid in that first 5 minutes, you don't even have that either. I encourage parents to be audio recording their meetings so that they have that record, but also to take somebody else along who can ask questions. And that's what an advocate does.
Another pair of eyes and ears. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Over, you said 31 years. Have you seen a big improvement with the schools helping?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So a lot of things we do better now as a country. A lot of kids now are really included in general education and getting support there. And it's funny, Natalie, because somebody asked me that question the other day of has it improved? Well, it improved in my own district where 7 years ago, we got a wonderful special education director, and he hired great staff and he trained them. So in my district, I have people to talk to when things aren't going well and people who will help. However, there are other districts which are just awful and there is nobody to talk to. One of that big case that the parents won 8-0 in the Supreme Court just maybe half a year ago, that district, it tends to be very difficult. They sent out an email saying they won to everybody, which was amazing that they lost 8-0. But there is at least one of, I don't know the second one, there's a special education director who could be wonderful, who I've worked with before in other districts, who I like a lot. And I'm hoping she's going to change the districts. But really, it depends who you have at any given time in charge of special education in that district. And although the parents supposedly have all these rights, basically, the school district has all the rights, and then parents can take them to court or to a due process or to file a complaint. And parents are supposed to have equal participation on the team, but that doesn't always happen.
And we know that's a great way to spend your money.
Yeah, and actually, if you go to due process, the school district is spending your tax money to fund their case and their expert witnesses, and you are also funding your own case. I try and keep people out of the legal system. That's one of my biggest goals, because it's a waste of money, and people need this money for their kids. Yeah. And that's not true of everybody. For me as an advocate, that's my first thing is, how can we get almost everything your child needs and you won't have to pay a lawyer to do this. Although some of the lawyers, that thank goodness they're there, because they help when it doesn't work.
Right.
So Yael, what was your journey in writing your book?
So I had for a long time been wanting to write a book, and I kept putting it off. And then actually around the same time, I think you started writing yours, we had met at that point, and I said, okay, I should be able to do this. And I sat down and I wrote down a list of the most frequent questions that people ask me. I mean, my first one was, how do you get them to evaluate your kid when they say no? And that was my first chapter, I think, because that's the most frequent question I get. But there are a lot of other questions I get. So I basically made a list of the questions, put them out there, put in scenarios to help explain, and gave away all my secrets. And there are school district people who read these secrets too, who have told me that they read my book. But I'm hoping if they read it that they'll be nicer in the meetings sometimes if they're not the ones who are already. So, and then I didn't know a lot about publishing books at the time. I just kind of had learned how to do it. So I got somebody to format the book, whereas now I just format books myself. It's fairly easy now to do that. And then, although here and there problems pop up anyway, and then
for most new authors, it's probably not the best use of their time.
That's true.
There's nuances, and if they're not technically savvy, there can be headaches that come from that. So, most of us that are in the publishing realm, we've learned to do those things, but we've also learned to start delegating because of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And so anyway, I did have somebody edit, I had somebody format, and then I had to give feedback, but I didn't understand how things were laid out at the time. I do have a second edition that will be coming out soon. I was hoping it would be ready, but it's not. But we can add to the Facebook pages and wherever this interview is. But because now I do understand what I really want it to look like. And there are things that have changed. And I feel like, okay, I have to change those things because life has updated. There have been court cases that to not have the Andrew F court case in there from the Supreme Court. It's like parents all the time want to know, well, what do I do? Can I use that to get my kids services? So that I won in there too. Anyway, but then I put it onto Amazon, and I had also, and this is something that's really important, as you well know, that I did choose at the time. I chose my own categories. I chose how I wanted to do my launch. I did it myself. I didn't know so much as I know now, although my book is almost always in the top 10 for my categories in special education, and almost, if it's not that, it's in the top 20. So it appears on the top page. But now, of course, I know a whole lot more about how to do that. And that is something. I have people who come to me with their books and say, well, here are the categories I wanted in. And that's, I think, the most important thing I do, is that I know how to do that. I've learned how to do it. And it wasn't an overnight thing. And now I can get people way up to the top.
Yeah.
Yael, yesterday we had a book launch, and it was pretty spectacular because I've learned and have him placed in probably 15 categories. He had the 10 that he was doing. He's still doing very well today, but we also have a book tour going on, and lots of
awesome.
Yeah. But on a side note, his book might be very valuable for your clients, people that you work with, because it was on high functioning autism and being able to learn how to communicate better. And
awesome.
Very, very good step-by-step processes and it doesn't just apply to that, because many of us have difficulty, especially if we're in groups, to figure out what to say and how to start a conversation and keep a conversation going. But because he experienced it in his youth, and it affected him, even though he was a doctor of education, or is a doctor of education, it affected him in large ways. And we had a spectacular launch yesterday, but I would recommend you pick up his book.
Definitely will.
I think it's something that your own clients would find beneficial for themselves and for their children.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been delightful to have you.
Can I just mention about the membership group real quick?
Certainly.
So one of the things I realized is there are people who have advocates in different parts of the country. And even though I work countrywide, mostly I work in Colorado. However, I said, I need to do something for all those people who contact me that I'm not there, and even the ones who are right here. So I started a membership group. My Facebook page is Get IEP Help. And from there, I started the Get IEP Help membership group. And what it is there's all teaching of the system inside. There's a bonus in there about how you understand all these numbers that they throw at you in these meetings. I mean, it just sounds like Greek in there sometimes. And you're sitting there saying, what does this have to do with my kid? What does it mean? So there's a whole mini course of that in there. And there is a closed Facebook group, which people try and get in all the time without going through the membership link, but which you have to first. And what in the Facebook group, it's wonderful. I'm not the only advocate in there. I have a couple of 2, 3, 4 colleagues who are in there also answering questions. I have some parents who are both parents and advocates. I've had some advocates who said they came to learn more about how to do this and how to do this without going legal. So Natalie, are you putting up the link for that, for the membership group?
Yeah, we'll put it up after.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's very, it gives parents a step up, and the parents who are in the group are just so happy that they have a community. There's a lot of communities right now on Facebook for parents of kids with disabilities, but you get answers from all sorts of people. And this one, the other moms chime in too, don't get me wrong, but they know they can get an answer from an advocate who does this all the time. And we have practice sessions where we basically analyze what's going to happen in the meeting, and we role play those so that people know exactly what to do when they're going into a meeting. It's just the stuff there.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
Very good.
It's very important for those parents to have a place to go and voice their concerns and get help. So that's amazing.
Yes, it is. So, and the Get IEP Help Facebook page, I have free live shows every Wednesday night. And so parents can come in there on lots of different topics where I'm teaching or that I'm interviewing people also who are in the field in some way or another. So.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time for this interview, and we're happy to be able to share this out. And we'll put the links after we're done with this. We'll put the links down below in the comments, and you're welcome to share it. I'll be sending you a link for cross-posting. So thank you for this awesome interview.
Thank you so much.
Stop live stream. Stop.
Authors hire Becky and Natalie of Spotlight Publishing for their guidance in treating their book as their business. Many authors have no idea where to start, how to market themselves, nor how to have a successful book launch reaching #1 bestseller. This often leads to discouragement and disappointment. Spotlight Publishing works with their authors to get seen, get read, and get paid for their knowledge and expertise. For more information, go to www.spotlightonyourbusiness.com. Spotlight Publishing. Your book is your business.